Are you getting angry at a TV show that you've watched and enjoyed for years? Is Game of Thrones a show that made you realize you don't control the entertainment you watch? Or are you still signing petitions to change the end of Lost? Let's see if we can all calm down on this reality-inducing bowl of dude soup.
Please enjoy this banger of a tune we provided for you all.
Anger. I think do we do it? Are we here? Is this it? There we are. All right. Game of Thrones Dude Soup round 2. We did one last week too.
But who are these people?
I'm gonna introduce. I was gonna get there. Jeez. This over to my left is Kraken from
What's up?
From YouTube.
From YouTube, Twitch, world-renowned entertainer. Thank you for having me on Dude Soup.
He is I guess around the world, but only because he's on Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah.
It still counts.
It still counts.
What's your YouTube and Twitch channel?
Kraken on YouTube and Kraken on Twitch. It's pretty easy to remember. Actually.
Crikeen.
Crikeen.
Yeah, that's right. And you've been watching Game of Thrones for how long?
Since the show came out. I never read the books, but I was there at episode 1 all the way through, so I consider myself a hardcore fan.
All right, excellent. And then over to my kind of straight ahead of me, Mike Rougeau from GameSpot.
Hey.
A self-proclaimed Game of Thrones expert.
God, did I say that?
No, I think I said that actually.
Yeah,
I said
Alana
about
called you an expert. Alana called you an expert.
That's
so,
fair.
How long have you been watching Game of Thrones? What's your exposure to Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I read the books. My now wife gave me the books about 8 years ago, and I read them all pretty quickly. And then when the show premiered a few months after I read the books, I was out of the country in a much different time zone. But when the show premiered, we had just started dating and we Skyped, and she turned the computer around and faced it at the TV.
Oh, nice.
It was 4 a.m. where I was, and I was in a hostel.
That's really
adorable.
Yeah, that's really
So
romantic.
that I could watch the pilot.
It's a lot better than
Quality stuff.
my story of watching Game of Thrones.
I just turned it on. That's all I
I
did.
turned it on.
We had
Yeah,
to
so-
pirate it because you can't get it easily in Australia.
Australia, yeah.
So illegally downloaded it for several years.
Yeah.
But now I'm paying for it.
Tight,
It's fine.
that's
Nobody
fine.
can let me.
Over to my left,
Didn't have a choice.
Alana Pierce, also from Funhaus.
Yeah,
just over here. First up, the ad read just really quick. This Dude Soup is sponsored by Quip, Honey, and Bespoke Post. Quip toothbrush starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/dude right now, you can get your first refill pack of brushes for free. Honey, get Honey coupon codes for free at joinhoney.com/dude. And Bespoke Post, get 20% off your first monthly Bespoke Post box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code DUDE at checkout. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about all the angry people that Game of Thrones has made
Yay!
over the last
We used to be happy
two or
people,
three
and
weeks.
now we're angry people.
See, I'm still happy. I've had a great time, but a lot of people are not. So the Game of Thrones series finale just aired this past Sunday, and it was an ending. It brought closure to some of the stories over the past 8 seasons and 8 years, but many people, including I think some of the people here, were left wanting more. I would agree. Like 6 to 10 more episodes, maybe, guys?
Minimum.
Minimum, understood. I should say that this podcast is not about our opinions of Game of Thrones, the television show, so much as it is about the internet hate machine that's been riled up by bad television. Watch our Filmhouse podcast on Saturday for the Funhaus opinions of Game of Thrones, and also spoilers. Spoilers throughout the podcast.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and it's now that the show's over, you kind of don't have an excuse, in my opinion. But there will be spoilers, so just be aware of that.
And spoilers for the books, probably.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely.
If you haven't read the books.
The books have been out for 15 years? 20?
something. Yeah.
Jeez, okay. All right, yeah. Feel free to correct me, by the way, because I don't know everything about the books. It sounds like you do, Mike, so that's good.
Not everything. I probably should.
Leave.
I will get some flack if I say I know everything.
All right, let's start with the infamous petition. There's a change.org petition that says David Benioff and D.B. Weiss have proven themselves to be woefully incompetent writers when they have no source material, i.e. the books, to fall back on. This series deserves a final season that makes sense. Subvert my expectations and make it happen, HBO. So anyone here mad enough to actually sign the petition? Criken, what about you? Did you sign that?
No.
Thank you for saying the reasonable thing. Alana, what about you?
Absolutely not.
Mike, did you sign that?
I feel personally attacked because I already told you guys that I did sign it.
You set me up perfectly.
I signed this when it had like 15,000 signatures, and I just thought that it was kind of funny because it's not reasonable to expect that HBO is going to actually remake this. But I think I've grown ashamed of my actions since then because I think an alarming number of these people actually think that might happen.
So you signed it as a joke, and then it sounds like a lot of people jumped on this bandwagon
I signed it as a joke and also as a general expression. I wasn't happy with this season.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, here's another way to get my voice, which hopefully is how a lot of these people feel. But also,
there's 1.5, almost 1.5 million
So
people.
when
have
I
signed
first
it.
saw screenshots of it, all I saw was remake Game of Thrones season 8. I didn't realize that it said with competent writers. Like I didn't realize that it was
It's pretty
written
mean-spirited.
insultingly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To which
it's-
case I was like, sign petitions, go for it. Like you're expressing disappointment to a major corporation who's made millions of dollars off of a property, and I think that we should do that. But when it's written like that, now I'm like, oh, maybe not.
It's so it's
You're just
interest-
being mean.
It's interesting, yeah, because the first thing when I saw this petition, I think it was a couple of weeks ago is when I first saw it, or whenever it first came out.
I think it was right after episode 5.
Is that what it was?
Right after Danny turned, people were like,
so upset about
screw this.
that.
I think it might have been after episode 4.
Oh, either way, so we're all kind of creators here. We're all people that make content for the internet. We're obviously subject to a lot of mean comments and also nice comments. And I was just kind of curious for you guys, do you think this petition is disrespectful to the writers, showrunners, actors, crew, the people that make the show and have been making it for the last 8 years? Do you think it's disrespectful, or do you think it's more of just like it's trying to be a wake-up call? I don't know. What do you think of it?
I think it's, in general, yes. I think it is. It's kind of born from a place of just people wanting their ending. And I'm one of those people. I excuse me. I didn't get the ending I would have wanted. I think the writing kind of fell apart this season. And that was really frustrating. But I think mature enough, and also as a creator, I know all the work that goes into these sort of things, and it's not as simple at a 1,000-mile high view as it is as people on the ground working it. So I have to give them the benefit of the doubt that there was reasons why it ended up the way it did, and it's not as easy as just make it again. So like I'm totally for people advocating for change, or as you said, petitions are important and for people to have their voices heard. But I think for anyone to actually expect this to get done and to hold people accountable for that is totally unrealistic and just shows you have no understanding of how production works. Really.
Ooh, boom! Wow.
I think there are a bunch of facets to it in that I feel exactly the same way you do, but it's also they already have all your money.
Yeah.
HBO already has all of your money, so why would they even acknowledge it? I didn't think it was inherently disrespectful until I saw the way that it was written. Because again, the screenshot that I saw only had remake Game of Thrones season 8 with the last part cut off because that image is formatted terribly. So I can understand how that happened.
Speaking of cut off, can I just jump in and say that the picture of this is it's a cropped version of the Night King, but it's not even cropped in like
terrible.
something that makes sense. It looks like a shitpost.
I think it's still 16:9 ratio,
Yeah.
but you just make that bigger.
like
I don't know.
You'd think with a 1.4 million, this guy would have like Dylan D or whatever.
Can you go in and change the picture after? I don't know how to change it. I've never made it. I sign petitions. I don't make them. So
Do you think he realized it's got this many, or just like walked away from his computer and never came back?
It's really funny that he said subvert my expectations,
Subvert.
HBO. Like they'd be
He's
like, damn, he thinks we won't do it.
He's being so clever, isn't he?
Yeah.
Mike, what about you? I know you've signed it, but I mean, like, kind of how do you feel about it when it comes to being a creator and things like that?
it's a fine line because I've been accused of this over the last 6 weeks. I've been really vocal. I have another show that I co-host, and I write the reviews every week on GameSpot. And I've been accused over the past month or so of being disrespectful to the amount of work that goes into the show by doing things like calling the last few episodes a trash fire, etc.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a fine line between criticism and still acknowledging the work that goes into something. And it's easy to lose sight of that, especially, when it's something like Game of Thrones and where so many people are, including myself, are so passionate about it, and we're reacting in the moment. Like the credits roll, and I just immediately start
bang,
writing.
yeah.
Right. And then we can take a step back later and say, look at all the people that worked on this. Look at how exquisite the costumes are. Look at how wonderful the music is. Like there's
How well shot it is.
Yeah.
the cinematography is gorgeous.
Yeah,
and
this season was great. Cinematography.
Consistently.
yeah, it was never better than this season. And there's so many things to praise about it. But I think the things that we're angry about tend to always win out in the immediate, in the moment. So I don't know whether I would pass judgment on something being respectful or disrespectful. I think it's kind of beside the point.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because that's kind of my point with this whole podcast is that it's very reactionary. So in the last few weeks, especially with Game of Thrones, I've seen the internet become more reactionary than it normally is, and normally it's pretty reactionary. So and that for me is generally what you want to do is take a step back and think. Obviously, your job is to do that, but a lot of people's job is not to get out on Twitter and bitch about Game of Thrones. And they're doing it now. And it's like, take a step back, maybe wait a little bit to see how it sets with you, how it makes you feel before you really lean in to how bad the writing is or how bad the characters are or how bad the story is or whatever else. I understand sort of your point of view because you have to be reactionary.
Yeah, but I think it's nice to have conversations like this where we have a couple of days removed.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to keep talking about Game of Thrones probably for the rest of time, right?
Yep. And that's kind I feel
Like
like
Harry Potter.
Well, it's I feel like that was their goal. They wanted this show to be talked about. They didn't want it to peter out. They didn't want it to be like, oh, fine, like Game of Thrones season 13. Jeez, like here we go again. I got to watch 10 episodes of this garbage. Like they wanted it to be something that everybody that's sort of at the height of its popularity to go out. Seinfeld's another good example of that, where they stopped the show because they're like, this is the funniest that the show will ever be, and we're done with it. Yeah. We want to go out on a high note, and they did.
Or Breaking Bad, or anything that has an end state in mind, at the beginning or near the beginning.
I think the end has angered a lot of people. It wasn't. I don't know that it was exactly what they envisioned in their head. And actually, to that point, I have sort of another question that I'm just curious to see because this is something I've seen a lot on the internet. A lot of people have been saying this to me when I'm tweeting about Game of Thrones. Is it possible to say that objectively, the writing has been bad these last 2 seasons? Objectively,
I don't think you can objectively say anything is good or bad.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
It's an interesting point that we have to make.
Yeah.
I think if it depends because if you're comparing it to itself, it's a very different beast from the first few seasons to now. And bad or good is again subjective, but you can definitely I think objectively say it's different. I think the first 5 seasons, first 3 seasons, wherever you made the cutoff, to the last 2 are almost a different show. They just feel fundamentally different. So. Whether you want to call it bad or good, it's up to you. Personally, I think these last 2 were weaker than the first few, but.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't fully agree, only because I think there are, obviously whether you enjoy something is subjective, but I think there are objective measures of whether something is done well,
sure,
right?
Tell us how.
I mean, if you're going to forget about the writing for a second, look at like the cinematography. The cinematography in this show is gorgeous, right? But if there's a boom mic in the shot, that's objectively bad.
Yes,
or if there's a coffee cup or a water bottle in the shot, that's objectively not good. And I think that you can take that kind of thinking and apply it to anything. So in terms of the writing, if there are a ton of loose ends, if it doesn't feel satisfying, if the characters aren't consistent from scene to scene or episode to episode, I do think that that's objectively bad.
Well, important you said it doesn't feel satisfying because that's subjective. So that's important. See, like it's one of those things where it's like because you're absolutely right. Loose ends or plot holes or things like that I feel like everybody can point at and be like, that's bad. Mm-hmm. Like that's something that good writing shouldn't have. That I feel like that's
saying it feels satisfying is not great. Obviously,
that's subjective
because there can be plot holes and bad writing or whatever, and it can still feel satisfying to you.
No, and it does. So so personally, yes, they're like the show has felt satisfying for me, but that's sort of besides the point. But I'm interested to honestly hear how you can say something is objectively bad. Like that's a good way to put it. Is like if there are plot holes.
Are rules of writing that you can disobey. That objectivity is such a set in stone thing that I don't feel like it can be objectively bad. But there are rules of writing that I feel like it has betrayed that it didn't previously. I feel like characters who had developed for several seasons basically lost themselves and stopped being those characters and became inconsistent and didn't follow their own values a bunch. And so that gets muddied. And I feel like if you're a person who professionally critiques writing, that you would look to that and be like, that is bad.
Yeah.
But it still depends where you're coming from and what you like. So I feel like, yes, maybe people who are writers would think it was bad. It seemed like a lot of the actors on the show thought it was bad from a lot of what they've said.
Those reactions are incredible.
Yeah, I know. It's wild.
I mean, look at Tyrion making like every choice he's made or every piece of advice he's given Daenerys over the past 2 years has been pretty bad advice. Like he's made bad decision after bad decision.
He acknowledged that in the series finale.
Yeah, so. He's supposed to be the smart one. Or if you want to again look at something other than writing, look at the way the show is edited. Right. One of my big problems with episode 3 was the lack of consistency from shot to shot. Mm-hmm. There would be a lot of shots where there were 5 or 10 or 15 zombies running at someone, and then the camera would cut, and now there's only one in front of them, and they kill that zombie, and everything's fine.
It's really loud, and there's tons of them, and then it's silent, and they're all gone.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed to happen over and over, and so I think it's fair to say that you enjoyed that episode, but I think that, for example, the editing in that episode is objectively bad because it's inconsistent.
So those critiques are interesting because I
feel like
I agree with you, but also at the same time, I think this speaks to a larger point, which is a lot of people were bought into the original, let's say 5 to 6 seasons of the show, which was never that show.
Yeah.
It was never the show of White Walkers charging it. Like, it wasn't an hour and a half battle scene, right?
Right.
I mean, Battle of the Bastards, I think, is one of my favorite episodes.
It's a fantastic
Definitely.
episode, but see, they had the entire season to plan it. And so to me, this is where I've noticed a lot of Game of Thrones fans, they felt betrayed because season 7 and 8 were so different from 1 through 6, or maybe 1 through 5. And I think that people were bought into a longer, more dialogue-heavy, more thoughtful show, and this show isn't that now. It's a different show. That's the way
the change is what people are having issues with.
And
You were like, it was so good, and then it wasn't. I had this thing with the slight sidestep, Assassin's Creed. I'll always feel this way about this franchise, where Game 1 was fine, Game 2 built into this lore that they'd built for a really long time, and then Brotherhood added to it, and Revelations added to it, and then 3 came out and shat on all of it so that they could just keep making more of the games.
Yes.
And like all of this lore that I had spent hours investing time into, and glyphs, and the people who came before, and all this stuff that I got so nerdy about, they were like, doesn't matter anymore. And I'll never like get over how good Assassin's Creed could have been if that original trilogy actually came out the way that it was planned to come out.
Justice for Desmond.
Kills me. Yeah, who cares? Let's just kill him. It doesn't matter.
So it's and that's a really good example. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and it's the same deal. Like, Star Wars just sort of gets shat on over and over. But just to give you a context and of me personally, I read 60 of the expanded universe Star Wars books. I read those books from 12 till about 30,
60.
35, and then or whenever they. And so just recently, it was like I think it was 2014. They were like, none of that counts.
Yeah.
None of it counts.
Oh boy.
And I went, that's okay. I went, that's all right.
Really?
You know what? It's their story. Yeah, it's their story. And
Good for you.
And I went back and the books that I read and the books I enjoyed, I still enjoyed them.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, no big deal.
I definitely still enjoyed the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, and I would go back and watch them, and I wouldn't be bitter about it.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the last ones.
Sure. No, you didn't like. See, it's funny. So I'll give you a counterpoint to this. I loved them. I thought the entire series was building up to the last 2 seasons. The narrative for me, the overarching narrative, was always about dragons, was always about the Starks, was always about the larger implications of this world. And while I really enjoyed the smaller stories along the way of, Prince Oberyn and those sorts of things, I really liked that stuff. I knew we were getting to the big stuff, and I was really excited about it.
Yeah.
No, we can get into semantics.
I
I agree with that. I just didn't like the way that stuff happened.
No, and a lot of people don't. I did. I was able to find justification for a lot of the characters and what they were doing. A lot of it made sense to me. Some plot holes absolutely didn't. So, I totally agree with you when you point out plot holes.
I think something people have trouble with is accepting that you can enjoy something and also criticize it, right?
Yeah,
and this is in a lot of ways, it's like the crux of my my job and like my everyday existence is I criticize things. I'm a critic, but
you love it.
I still enjoy it. Like, there were so many things this season that had me in tears or cheering,
that's great.
seeing Jon ride a dragon, Clegane Bowl, which
was awesome.
come on.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
awesome.
imagine like a better way of that going down.
See, I talked to somebody who hated it.
I
loved it.
That's
I thought it
wild
was-
to me. But
yeah.
see, that stuff it is subjective. But I'm still a fan in the end.
Yeah, no, and that's a good way to put it, because I think a lot of people haven't made that distinction. Also, it really helps that it's your job.
It's because they feel like they were disrespected. I was just arguing with someone on Twitter about this before we started. And people have been like, this TV show has disrespected me. And I'm like, I don't think a TV show can disrespect
can't.
you.
Yeah, I don't
buy
think
that.
it had you personally in mind. Like, this is not a
don't think
personal
you have
attack
been
on
disrespected.
you. People's identities get so wrapped up in things that and I'm guilty of it. I have 2 Game of Thrones tattoos. Like, I am that person, but you have to be able to take a step back and say, I am not Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones is not me, and it can be bad.
Not
and I
you,
can
but
enjoy
there's
it.
all those people that name their children Daenerys. When,
That was okay. That
which
was
is
just
hilarious.
a fuck up.
Can
Let's
you
be
imagine
honest.
now, like, this happens and they're like, oh God, we can never show you the show. I think actually on the point we just talked about, entitlement is a thing that we are very familiar with in the content creator space, especially in the gaming sphere. I think it's pretty well known that gamers are very entitled with the things they're fans of, and I think we're moving towards kind of this moment in our culture where when you're a fan of something, you feel a sense of ownership over that entity.
Yeah.
And hence all these petitions they're popping up for, was it Patterson as Batman or?
Oh yeah,
That one I feel
Pattinson.
like is really rude.
Well,
Okay.
but people railed against Heath Ledger as the Joker as well. Like
Yeah.
that was not a popular choice,
Yeah.
and then that movie came out, and
And they're like,
oh,
Everybody
my
shut
bad.
up.
yeah.
Everybody shut up.
what about changing Sonic? Like we're getting off topic,
Yeah.
I guess, but I think that sets a dangerous precedent.
It
Right?
started with Mass Effect 3.
Yeah,
I'll
did.
never forgive Mass Effect 3 for that. And be like,
you're
look
right.
what you've done.
yeah, that's fair.
Like all of these things, actually, I mostly think are bad. Like I'm like, I don't like the way Sonic looked, but I'm never gonna be like, hey, creator, change something.
Right, I
Especially
mean-
because when we create stuff, you know how that feels.
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, but this guy really loved it. Why would I listen to you? Like these
What about
people enjoyed
HBO
it.
going in overnight and removing the coffee cup? I think the coffee cup should stay. I think that becomes part of the
did they
legend
remove
of the
it?
show.
Yeah, they
yes,
did.
overnight.
Digitally, yeah.
They sent out a press release saying the coffee cup was a mistake. Daenerys actually had ordered tea, so
Legit.
we're going to fix it. And overnight, they removed it. It's gone.
It's kind of a bummer.
So
That's
like, where does that stop though? What if they went back and re-edited episode
Yeah.
3? Like,
That's like what they're doing,
True.
quote unquote, with Sonic. They're re-editing
Exactly.
Sonic,
I can actually think
which
of-
is crazy.
I can think of something before this, Star Wars. Or
Lost.
In
We have
1997, when they
lots.
redid the special editions. The special
True.
editions, George Lucas added a bunch of garbage.
yeah, but nobody asked for that.
I think it's because
That's
I
the
wanted to,
difference.
right?
It's interesting. Yeah, you're right. Nobody asked for it. But to me, I was kind of worried about it because I was like, I remember thinking when I was a kid, I was like 16. I was like, oh man, I'm so excited. I can't wait. New stuff. That means it's going to be better.
Yeah. It's like an alien that walks from the frame like, hello,
I
there's
know.
more aliens this time.
Boy,
And he-
was I wrong.
Oh,
So,
George.
Have you seen the despecialized versions, the fan made ones?
I don't know that I have. No.
They're gorgeous.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Well, there you go. Just one thing to know about these: the writing is bad in the last 2 seasons. That's something I see a lot. A lot of people have said the writers changed. The writers changed. It's worth noting that Benioff, Weiss, and Martin are credited as writers on IMDb for all 73 episodes. There were 2 new writers this season: Gersimerin Sandhu and Ethan J. Antonucci. They both worked as assistants to Benioff and Weiss on the show since 2015. So they've been on the show since 2015, but they're new staff writers for season 8. Brian Cogman and Dave Hill are other writers that have been on the show since 2011 and 2015,
Yeah.
respectively. So honestly, there hasn't been much of a
Yeah.
change.
I don't put much
There
stock
hasn't
in
been a
that.
change at all.
I feel like
neither.
Yeah.
they just needed more people for the massive whiteboard, and they're like, how are we gonna bring all these together for these last episodes? And so they just had more people on staff
Yeah.
to
Yeah, and
help.
Cogman is the guy who George has always pointed to as like, this is the guy.
Yeah.
This is my avatar on the crew of creating the
Right.
show version of this story, and he's the guy who's supposed to be the encyclopedia of all this stuff.
yeah,
so
no, he's been there, all the way to the end.
He's
Yeah.
like the Pablo Hidalgo.
the what now?
Never mind.
Sorry.
He's the Star Wars guy who knows everything.
Sure.
Who's Pablo Hidalgo?
Never mind.
You're the
Okay,
Star
all
Wars
right.
guy. You don't know either.
I'm not sure.
not just me.
He's like the law keeper of
He
Star
sounds like an
Wars.
alien.
Is he the lore keeper of
Yeah,
Star
let me
Wars?
make sure
I
I'm
thought it was
using the right name.
Steve Sansweet.
You thought that was you.
No, it's definitely not
It is
me.
Jacob Fullerton.
What? Who?
Jacob Fullerton.
Jacob Fullerton. Yeah, it's Jacob Fullerton. And speaking of Pablo Hidalgo, he probably also brushes his teeth.
Oh, good segue.
Just like we all do.
Yeah, it is Pablo.
Okay, all right.
Speak for yourself, please.
It's time for gross. It's time for spring cleaning. Quip toothbrush has an easy way to start with your brushing habits. Just 2 minutes twice a day can help pave the way to a healthier mouth and mind. And now the whole family can get refreshed with Quip. New Kids Quip has the same 2-minute timer and guiding pulses as our original version, with no childish gimmicks, so they can brush just like a grown-up. The Quip toothbrush has a built-in 2-minute timer that pulses every 30 seconds to remind you when to switch sides and help you to clean your whole mouth evenly. You know that up to 90% of us don't brush for a full 2 minutes or don't clean evenly, so the timer actually really helps. Brush heads are automatically delivered on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5. It's a friendly reminder when it's time for a refresh and to stay committed to your oral health. 75% of us use old, worn-out bristles like Criken that are ineffective, so the refills are perfect to solve that problem. Quip is awesome because of that 2-minute timer on the brush. I don't know if you guys brush with an electric toothbrush that does that, but it's fantastic.
No, I have
good
old,
stuff.
worn out bristles.
Oh, no, yeah,
That's a
that's
Quip.
not.
But I brush for like 10 minutes at a time, so I make
That's
up for
bad
it.
for your gums. So it really is great. That's why I love Quip, and over 1 million happy, healthy mouths do too. Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/dude right now, you get your first refill pack for free. That's your first refill pack for free at getquip.com/dude. So it's GETQUIP.com/DUDE. All right. back to Game of Thrones. Nobody's upset yet, which is good. That's a good thing.
I'm level. I think I've lost the ability to
okay.
truly be angry.
Yeah, last episode I drank heavily, and I think that helped contribute
I
to
actually
mine.
liked the finale more than most of the other episodes.
I liked the finale too, and I think partly was because I was getting really drunk and I was just kind of celebrating the end of an era. and it
You
was like,
Tyrion'd it.
No,
Yeah,
at no point was I angry. There were things that I laughed at, though.
yeah, me too.
Being angry is a little different.
Okay. Question I've seen a lot on the internet. Again, did Benioff and Weiss do whatever they wanted with the ending? Did they consult Martin, or did they just go, fuck it, we're going to do whatever we want? I pulled a bunch of interviews about this because I've seen this a lot. I've seen them say, yeah, they said they talked to George R. R. Martin, but they probably didn't.
Okay.
So here's an Entertainment Weekly interview in April 2019 with Benioff and Weiss. EW asked them, how much of this season is from discussing the ending with George R. R. Martin? And Benioff said, the concern used to be that the books would spoil the show for people, and luckily it did not for the most part. Now that the show is ahead of the books, it seems the show could ruin the books for people. So one thing we've talked to George about is that we're not going to tell people what the differences are, so when those books come out, people can experience them fresh, which is interesting. It's an interesting take from him because he's like, we don't want to spoil the books, and in reality, we may be hiding things because we don't want to spoil the books, which I thought was kind of cool. Weiss also said it's kind of nice for him because obviously through necessity, we pulled out ahead. The show has become so different in recent seasons that people will have no way of knowing from watching that what will or will not appear in the books. And honestly, neither do we. And Benioff said, we don't. George discovers a lot of stuff while he's writing. I don't think that final book is written in stone yet. It's not written on paper yet. As George says, he's a gardener and he's waiting to see how those seeds blossom. So that's sort of the advantage to reading a book versus watching a television show or a movie. You get a lot more time to expound upon what happened to every character and what all these stories sort of tie up.
I feel like it has to be super different. It's not possible for it not to be.
I tend to believe that this is basically the gist of the ending, like the broad strokes, the big beats,
The Daenerys stuff, I think, was probably always going to happen.
Yeah, Dany goes crazy, burns down King's Landing. Sean retires at the Wall somehow, never fully embraces his secret identity.
Bran is king?
Bran is king, probably.
Okay. All right, I think so too.
What I think will be different is and vastly different, not just slight differences, is the path that all these characters take to get to these places, because there are so many characters, so many storylines from the books that are huge, that he couldn't just drop or turn off with the flip of a switch. Like, these things are going to matter for the end state of all these narratives in the
Lady
books.
Stoneheart, that's such a big one that we're all like, is that going to happen?
Aegon the Sixth, or fake Aegon, or Fagon, as book nerds like me like to call him. He was introduced in book 5, but that's another Targaryen heir, right? And he's somebody who is Varys's ultimate plan, allegedly in the books. Like, if you look at Varys as a puppet master, supporting Daenerys and Viserys before her is a feint in one direction, and in the background of that, he's really setting up Aegon to be the real king and destabilizing King's Landing and trying to screw up the Lannisters' plan, and like all of that has to matter, and they leave it out of the show entirely. So
I guess, does it have to matter? Like, it's a lot of people. I saw a lot of tweets and a lot of threads about like, what was this scene about back in season 3, and what was this scene about back in season 2, and like all this, and I don't know. I'm not sure exactly like what they were getting at. Did they expect that every single storyline would tie up in the last season?
I think so, yeah. That's what I sort of expected. If you're going to put a lot of weight in something and get me invested into something, I would think it is to pay off somewhere.
Like, what did you get invested in? Like,
the direwolves seem really important to me, and then they were just like,
there's a lot of stuff like
invested?
that. Like the whole, Arya going literally across the sea and learning to become a masterclass assassin who can turn herself into anyone. She uses that skill once and then is like, I guess I've used it enough. And it's like, it could have been useful at many different times in the last 2 episodes. And I felt like that would have been a nice payoff for her character. But, she didn't really use that. I mean, like, there's 100 things.
She did kill the Night King.
Yeah, but she didn't use her assassin ability to use that.
So I read into that scene and said that she did. Like, she was able to skirt past the entire army in order to kill the Night King.
But that's not on the screen, right? If we take what is up on the screen at face value.
Well, it was. They showed the hair go by. So to me, that was like, okay, she was able to easily evade them, no problem. That's what I got from it.
Right.
So
we can like theorize whether she used any of her powers, but it's not explicit.
Again.
Well, I guess that's the thing is I don't think they're powers. I just think that was her. That's what she does. She's an assassin, so she knows how to do that.
To me, Arya is the time turners of Game of Thrones. Arya and Bran in a lot of ways in that. They made them too powerful.
Bran for sure.
Yeah, but when they introduced time travel in book 3 of Harry Potter and then have, they destroy all the time turners in book 5 or whatever, it's like, that's J.K. Rowling going, we shouldn't have time travel. It makes everything too muddy. So if Arya and Bran had died 2 seasons ago, this might have made more sense.
Yeah. This entire season, I've been telling my friends that, like, I'm frustrated, but if they pay off Bran, then, like, something will have been worth it, because we have gone 8 seasons of like this
tolerating a little idiot.
Being dragged across the world, like gaining incredible power, but never really using it. And we're like, oh, what's he gonna do? And the 3rd episode comes and he like flies in some birds and he's like, oh, nice, I can see from up here. And then doesn't actually
he's
apply
not
that.
even doing but do you not think that becoming the king is paying off everything he did?
That is why I'm not super upset about, I mean, it seems out of character from what I know of Bran and have been led to believe about Bran, but it is at least an end that seems like, okay, maybe if I go back and rewatch things, I can place that he was actually planning for this long ago. Like that's something at least. I feel like I can derive some sort of satisfaction from that, even if it felt out of character at the moment. So yeah.
See, and this goes back to the way that things might end differently in the books. Well, the ending would be the same, the way we get there would be different. And this has to, totally. I mean, you read the books, so like all of the stuff with the 3-eyed crow in the books being a complete, like actually having a background, right? In the show, he exists to teach Bran how to do magic and be weird. But in the books, he's a character. He's a Targaryen who's like 125 years old and is has become a tree or whatever. And there's my favorite fan theory of the past couple of days following this episode has been that he will actually, like, he's lured Bran north to actually skin change with him, take over Bran's body. And so Bran winding up king at the end, it'll actually be, Bloodraven, the 3-eyed crow, inhabiting his body. And while the broad strokes of that ending remain the same, it's honestly completely different.
Right. Well, I guess that's sort of the point of a television show is like, you can't include everything.
Right.
So that's sort of, it's like and it's one of those things that you heard a lot about Lord of the Rings, which are now widely considered classics, is that they left out Tom Bombadil. And I was always like, I mean, but the movies are great.
Yeah. You don't need Tom Bombadil.
Well, what about the Scouring of the Shire though? That's a big thing that got left out of the movies that
didn't need it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that like we were talking about this earlier, it was like I could take these as individual like arts. Like a movie is a movie, whether or not it's based on a book or whatever. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I totally think the separation is fair. Yeah, my criticism of like direwolves not meaning anything is that the show did introduce them and get me invested, and then didn't have a payoff. I think that's the conflict.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. I never expected them to pay off because I never saw them.
Well, it felt like it felt like in the early seasons the show was just kind of including everything from the books. Right.
I think they should have cut stuff earlier.
Yeah. And then as soon as they started getting away from it, then they realize. I mean, in the books, the direwolves are really symbols, and the I can understand that this visual medium of television doesn't need that symbolism. It goes 10 layers deep.
They were also saying they're really expensive. I think they were also saying like the direwolves are just really expensive to animate.
There was a story that came out this past week. I forget. I'll tweet about it. I forget what website it was on, but it was they were interviewing the VFX people about the process of including the direwolves, and they like shoot them on a green screen, and then they have to choreograph the actual scenes to so precisely, and then make size them up and and composite them in, and they were like it got so expensive that we just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. It's like. For me, it's like, then pick a cheaper way to do it. Like, I don't care if it looks as good if they're there, but I'm a dog person.
Yeah.
So.
Same. More dogs.
I love dogs too, but also like, I just didn't ever see them. So for me, I was like, I would always ask the question, almost every episode, I'd be like, what happened to like Ghost, or what happened to the other, like Arya's direwolf? Like, can't the direwolf help Arya in this situation? But it's like, whatever.
Yeah, and it's another thing in the books that people are expecting, like Nymeria and her giant pack of wolves that we haven't seen, but they get mentioned. It's kind of like a subplot, right? Yeah. And people are expecting, that's like a Chekhov's gun that people are expecting to come back at some point, and maybe it does in the books, but like at a certain point, I realized the show was not going to have the budget and the time to have a giant wolf pack swoop in, as cool as that would be.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is all actually addressing like a really, I think, good through line, which is that, as they were adapting these books, they were just, as you said, kind of putting everything in there. And then as they ran out of kind of railroads with these books, they kind of bring in George R. R. Martin to the TV series, and they're like, all right, help us wrap this all up. And he's just kind of like, I don't know. Like,
Well, I think
They had to scale back.
I think he told him the finer points and then was like, go for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's just like, I'm not gonna hold your hand.
Hopefully
Like,
he's busy writing.
yeah, I mean,
yeah, maybe.
I don't know if the showrunners expected there to be a big like answer to everything, or if they just trusted that George R. R. Martin, like, I guess I'm curious on whose like onus it was on in this situation. You know, I mean, ultimately it's the showrunners because it's their show, but like, did they expect that George R. R. Martin would have an answer as they were moving past the books, or were they just like, this doesn't matter as much? You know, because you're right, they added every little detail that they could have just checked with George and be like, does this matter? And he could have probably guided them like, yeah, maybe not.
I mean, I think it's clear when they. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I imagine it does all matter. It's just that they didn't have time to keep it all in. So, like, they were introducing all these concepts initially that, as the seasons went on, were like, we can't pay that off. We don't have time or money to do it. So they just cut off things. And that's why, I know my parents got really hung up on the Red Witch. They were like, where is she? And then in this season, they were like, why did she show up and just die? Like,
Yeah.
they're like, but we cared so much about her. Why did that happen? And it's like different people have just been caught on different things that they got really heavily invested into. And I think it's just that they had to scale back as they went.
I think it's clear when they started cutting stuff too. I think around the time that they just stuck a sword through the Dornish plotline and
yeah.
kind of just killed all those characters
Yeah.
is when they decided, like, you know, George is at the point in the books where things just keep expanding and he keeps introducing more Dornish characters, more Ironborn characters, more characters across the Narrow Sea. And they, I think what they did is they picked the characters that they think are, you know, going to matter the most for the end game. So it's the Starks and it's
Yeah.
it's Dany
Daenerys,
and it's the people in King's Landing and the Lannisters, and they just kind of dropped everything else. And I think there's something inherently, it feels bad. I think because, like you said, like people get invested in Melisandre's story or the Dire Wolves or different things. I think that it could have been done well if the writing had remained consistent. You know, if they had properly set up the things that they did want to end on.
Yeah, I think
So hard to predict, though,
well-
and I
well,
get that too.
it's hard to predict, but also I think they were making a good television show. And the reason I say that is because if they had kept expounding upon whatever, let's say, I mean, George R. R. Martin, I have something cited here where he said he could have gone 11, 12, 13 seasons. And everyone's like, see? And I'm like, that would not make good television. And to my point, the highest ratings ever were in the series finale. The show had only been building. And that's exactly what Benioff and Weiss wanted. They didn't want to make this show something that was here for the next 15, 20 years. They probably didn't want it as their whole career either. But regardless, when you've overstayed your welcome, nobody's watching anymore. And at that
Yeah,
point,
I definitely don't think that it should have necessarily been longer.
well,
No,
that-
I agree. Yeah,
I
I have no
see a lot
problem
of
with that
I see a
ending.
lot of people say that, and it's again, this is one of those things where I think that people are coming to terms with the fact that this was a television show, and not like some overarching epic that's going to last their entire lifetime.
Yeah, and we'll still get that version, hopefully. I am at heart an optimistic person.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, I mean, like the books should satisfy.
I think so.
Hopefully, I think the more passionate fans, the ones that are complaining about this the most, it should satisfy that. I still think the decisions that Benioff and Weiss have made not only made a great television show, but also was exactly the way it should have been done for a television show of this caliber. Because again, the proof's in the pudding. The ratings are the highest they've ever been.
The ratings,
The ratings in terms of people,
Views,
numbers
right?
of people
Views, yeah.
watching. Yeah.
Oh,
What
yeah.
about the ratings in terms of like audience satisfaction? Right, those are the lowest.
I would
ever.
think audience
But-
reviews and critic reviews would be pretty low, right?
I guess I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't matter.
Oh,
It
sure,
doesn't,
they're still making
matter.
money.
It doesn't matter
No.
to HBO's bottom line,
Well,
right?
and that's the point. They're making a television show, and that's
You're not
unfortunately the sort of the world we live in.
Yeah,
is
people
that-
forget that. They're trying to make money. That's their goal.
Yeah, and like this was trying to make money, but also trying to make a good product. I thought they did both. A lot of people didn't, but regardless, it's one of those things where again, they watched 19.3 million people watched the show, the series finale.
Crazy.
And the final season has recorded 5 of the 6 most watched episodes in the history of Game of Thrones. The season 7 finale is the 6th. So with continued streaming, DVR, and on-demand viewing and additional replays, HBO says season 8 is averaging an unheard of 44 million viewers through Sunday.
That's crazy.
So-
I'm not at all surprised by that, though.
No, well, and that's I think that's something that I should remind people that it's not like a lot of people are like, this is a failure. It's garbage. It's a trash fire. And I'm like,
That's far from failure.
no, it turns out
That's my own colorful language.
And no, it turns out it's actually one of the most successful television shows of all time.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a lucrative trash fire.
I mean, that's
It's a very profitable trash fire. It's like
I
EA.
completely disagree because I didn't think it was a trash fire. But regardless, like
Just my opinion.
no, I know it's totally your opinion, but we can't argue with the fact that the most people watched it.
No.
And that's sort of to me that like I can guarantee that everybody behind closed doors HBO is going like, yeah, we got a lot of whiners, but you guys did it.
No, that's why I feel
totally
like the
did
petition
it.
is pointless. They made money already. It's already done.
Yep.
Why did they care?
Yep.
Profit.
I think there is maybe a conversation happening that we'll obviously never be privy to, but about the hit that they've taken to the brand. Like, I think the ideal scenario for HBO is that it has the most viewers ever, it makes a crap load of money, and also people love it, right? I think that judging by the petition, there's a lot of ill will right now toward...
It could hurt the prequel stuff they're making. I
Exactly.
think.
Like HBO doesn't stop and end with Game of Thrones. They have a lot of other stuff going on, and like misplaced or not, there is a lot of ill will right now
and trust, too.
toward HBO. And
I'm glad you say that because I want to transition to our next topic. Before that, let's talk about something we can all agree on: saving money. Right? Because when HBO made a lot of money, so we talk about saving money. The reality is, if you're not shopping around, you're probably not saving money. So what if there was a way for somebody to do the shopping around for you? Well, that's exactly what Honey does. Honey's a free tool that you download to your computer's browser. While you shop online, Honey scans the internet for coupon codes and other discounts. Then it automatically applies the coupon with the biggest savings to your cart at checkout like magic, like in Game of Thrones. It works on over 20,000 sites like Amazon, Nordstrom, J.Crew, Nike, Best Buy, Target, Macy's, and more. And it takes 0 effort to install, just 2 clicks, and you're ready to start saving anytime you shop online. Instead of taking my word for it, listen to what actual users had to say about Honey. Quote, love Honey. Heard about it through a podcast, and I finally caved after hearing their sponsored ad so many times. Cannot believe I haven't used it earlier. So useful and have saved me so much money since I installed it. Was an idiot to not install it before. Here's another Honey testimonial from Irene. I totally thought Honey was a scam, but I just got $300 worth of bathing suits for $180. Bang. Look, there's really no reason.
Bathing suits.
That's what?
It's a lot of bathing suits.
That's a lot of bathing suits and a lot of savings.
I think bathing suits are just expensive.
Okay.
They are for no reason.
Yeah.
There's really no reason not to use Honey. It's free to use and easy to install on your computer in just 2 clicks. Don't take it from me. Take it from any of the reviews you just heard. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/dude. That's joinhoney.com/dude. Honey, the smart shopping assistant that saves you time and money.
I just want to point out that Alana is over here doing this. See how easy it is to have somebody pet the direwolves without them being
Doesn't have to be in focus.
See? That's all I'm saying.
We were just talking about, what were we talking about before this that you had a really good segue for? You were talking about, what was it, Mike?
HBO needing people to
Money.
be satisfied.
That's
yeah.
right.
Prequels,
So
spin-offs.
This was something that I sort of asked out loud on Twitter. And why not just stop watching the show if it's so bad? Just stop watching. That was one of the things that happened last season in season 7, which was a year and a half ago now. People complained about it a lot, and I was always like, but why go through this? Why push yourselves through another whole season, another 2 years of pain? I know it's your job.
Okay, but it's
I have a better answer.
We're also
than
not
that, too.
angry. Like it
I
didn't.
mean,
Watching it didn't.
I've been angry. I was angry after episode 3. My point is that I'm now dead inside. I don't feel anger anymore.
Yeah. But I also, when I watch something for that amount, that one's easy for me to answer. When I watch something for that amount of time, it would be insane for me to not watch it until the end. It would be like watching like 5 of the Harry Potter movies and then being like, meh. It just feels crazy to do that. Like even if I get to like the 7th book in a 9-book series, I'm gonna be like, well, I did 7, so let's just get the whole way.
See, that is.
But I'm also not angry.
That's also
not upsetting me.
No, yeah, that's true. You're not angry, but I think if people that are angry about it, man, is that the wrong way to do this? That's totally the wrong way to do it. And the reason is because they're going to keep making more. So going back to your point about like building up ill will, boycott it. Don't watch Game of Thrones. Don't watch this next prequel.
I mean,
Really,
it is my job to watch Game of Thrones now, but it hasn't always been.
Yeah.
And back when I was freelancing, around season 5, I didn't like season 5. There were things in season 5 that pissed me off, so I did stop watching.
Oh, good.
I didn't watch
Good.
season 6 for
Okay.
a year until I got this job, and season 7 was about to come out, and I had to catch up.
Great. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of the thing that I wanted to say out loud to everybody is that you all have agency. You can just say no.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch
It's
if
just,
you don't
yeah,
want
you
to.
feel like you've given something a lot of your time.
Yeah.
I think it's also that the public conversation is a huge
Yeah.
thing. You want to be a part of a cultural phenomenon, and I get
Yeah,
that too.
it's the water cooler talk of both
Yeah.
the internet and social life, where your friends are watching it and like maybe they aren't as angry as you are, but you want to be part of the conversation, and then
Yeah.
you just be like the sour guy that keeps complaining, which was me for a while. So I'm.
But I also think
me too.
criticizing things with people is fun.
Yeah,
Like if
exactly.
we have a conversation where we're criticizing the season of Game of Thrones, I'm still going to enjoy doing that with people who are my friends. So I'll be like, I'm going to have fun talking to you about the things that we didn't like or why we did or why we disagree. And I enjoy that part of it also. So it's fun to be a part of regardless.
I just
I'm
wanted
going to see Sonic. I think that movie's going to
Yeah,
be
I'm
bad.
gonna see Sonic.
I'm going to see it.
I'm gonna get really high. I'm gonna go see Sonic.
Let's give it the
That'll be
benefit of the
great.
doubt. We don't know. I just wanted the books to come out. Like, back when I stopped watching, after season 5, it still felt possible that Winds of Winter would come out before the series concluded.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's what I was waiting for. So I think if George had come out and said, this book is not getting published for 5 years minimum, I would have probably just started watching them. What I wanted was to experience things the way that I thought they should be experienced first
time.
as a book fan first, and then I would go back and watch
Yeah,
the series.
there's also something we said about spoilers and the fact that we're living in an age now where like, you may be not watching the show because you want to finish the books, but the show finishes and suddenly you're inundated with
Yeah.
an insane amount of like
I-
images and text.
Even
and,
3 years ago, I wasn't watching them when they came out. I was like, I'll get to it. I don't care that much. And now, like, I skipped one episode and was like, fuck.
Oh yeah, because everybody's like talking
Spoiling
about
immediately.
Yeah.
I avoided learning that because in the books, the last time we saw Jon Snow, he was getting stabbed multiple times and dying, and I avoided. That was the other thing is that happened at the end of season 5, and I was like, I do not want to know whether he is getting resurrected or
Comes back.
staying dead until I get to read the
Yeah.
intended version. And I actually stayed away from that spoiler for months until
you.
I was in an airport and I saw the Entertainment Weekly cover with Kit Harington on it that says, he's alive. And I went, God damn it.
Why would you do that?
Well,
I don't blame them though. That's on me.
This is something that I think is important to the wrong word, it's nerd culture, but is important to like fan culture, which is no one will ever learn if all of you guys keep doing what you're doing, because they're going to keep making garbage. And
Yeah.
since you guys are like, well, I've invested 8 seasons, I got to keep watching, they're going to keep making it. So truthfully, if you hated Game of Thrones, not you guys, but if in general, if you hated Game of Thrones, don't watch the prequels.
No, I agree. Like,
Don't do it.
I don't buy DLC, and I haven't put any microtransactions, haven't spent any money on that in 6 years because I don't like any of it, so I stopped doing
That's
it.
great.
I'm like,
No, that's
if
great.
I'm going to tell audiences don't buy DLC because then you'll just get more DLC and microtransactions will just get worse, then I'm going to stop doing it. And I haven't done it in a really, really long time. And I think that applies to people who hate it. But for people who are criticizing it but still enjoying it,
No, that's-
I can super easily rationalize why I've still watched the whole thing, and I'd
Absolutely.
do it again.
Absolutely. Well, it was one of those things that I was, because it's like I just say it out loud and everyone always gets so upset about it. I'm like, you can just stop.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep
Hate
watching.
things.
Yeah, like
do
if
them.
you really, and you're gonna go through life and realize, oh, I don't like doing this. I'm not gonna do it anymore. so don't watch. And that's, I think that has been breeding a lot of negativity on Game of Thrones is because people who hate it are still watching it. And I'm like, just stop. Like, don't kill yourself anymore. Just don't watch it.
I think people are. I think yes, to a certain degree, but I think creators are going to keep creating things regardless, and some of them are going to be like if the ratings had gone down this season, I don't think it would have necessarily affected anything, right? Like the prequels are the ball is rolling on those already, and creators are going to keep making things, and some of them are going to be good and some of them are going to be bad, right? Like I don't think they didn't set out this season to make a bad season of Game of
course not.
Thrones.
Yeah.
I believe that they did the best job that they could with the tools and the number of episodes that they gave themselves.
Yeah,
so
same.
That's
if we
good.
stop watching
That's good.
it,
I think they tried their damn hardest.
A lot of people don't think that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I-
crazy.
I-
Come on.
they-
Of course
they-
they were trying to make something good.
Yeah, no, a lot of people don't think that.
but they said they put that limitation on themselves. So I still ultimately
they're still responsible.
I still
for it,
ultimately blame them because it's well documented that HBO wanted to give them more episodes and they said no, we can wrap it up in 6,
Yeah.
which I think is an insane thing to say, but I think they really thought that they could do it.
I'm glad you brought that up because I got a bunch of stuff to that point, and it is absolutely true. Those guys, Benioff and Weiss, have been saying that since 2014.
They've been saying it for years.
They've
yeah.
been saying since 2014 they only wanted to show 7 seasons And this is something that, again, I've seen a lot on the internet. People are saying Benioff and Weiss just wanted to move on to Star Wars. They got Star Wars and they were like, we're done with this show. That's not true at all. They've been saying this for 5 years now, that they wanted the show to end after 7 seasons, and HBO's pulled another season out of them.
I think it was supposed to be more episodes, though.
I mean, either way,
In a way, they kind of did 7 seasons
because of the
you can look at
that's what it
season
is.
7 and
Combined.
8 as one combined.
6 and 6, right?
I think it was 7 and 6.
7 and 6. So that's
it would
a
be an extra long
season and a half, yeah.
but-
And that's sort of the thing that I wanted to sort of point out is that they've been trying to make this a sort of a complete story from the very beginning. And they knew it was going to be, like Benioff says, we always believed it was about 73 hours. And a lot of people,
So we had to think about
very
that way.
specific.
well, a lot of people were like, they're
73.
bullshitting. And I was like, like, if they've been saying this for years, I don't know that they are.
No, I believe that they thought that they could wrap it up. I think that was foolhardy in
Yeah,
retrospect.
that's the confusing thing. There's like anyone that watches the season, like it feels rushed. Like I don't think there's anyone that I've talked to that hasn't felt that way, even if you liked it.
I didn't feel that way.
Okay. Well,
I mean, look back at season 1 where there's an entire episode of just them traveling from Winterfell to King's Landing, and now it feels like people are traveling back and forth.
Yeah, and
Love it.
in the space of a single episode.
Yeah.
I love
so
it.
you like that,
I
but
love it.
But do you argue that doesn't feel faster paced?
No.
I'm not as worried about that too. I mean, that's also kind of like, I mean, I'm a D&D nerd, but like, you know, when you're like a low level, like when you're traveling from one city to another, you can be attacked by like, you know, a goblin on the way. And it's like, that's a big deal. But then like you're level like 20 and it's like, you don't have to
So you
Also,
think
we've
every
seen that
goblin.
journey
They
before.
leveled
That
up.
part I don't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. So I'm okay with that
kinda
stuff.
That's why I feel that way. And I feel like it leveled up as a television show. I feel like, okay, yeah, the first 2 seasons are just literally people talking in one area, and then it's leveled up.
Yeah.
7 seasons in, we got 3 dragons, we have huge armies, we have an epic that they have to tell. And I knew that they had to tell the epic, so I'm glad that they're skipping the traveling of 4 episodes.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
fine with skipping that stuff too.
Yeah. It
Some
is.
people are not, though.
It's the character stuff that I would want to.
Well, it's just
go
if
longer.
they're going to skip the travel, I would like the show to demonstrate that time has passed, right?
I get that.
To acknowledge the realities. You know, it used to be a show where those things mattered, and I think it's a totally fair criticism of the early seasons to say there are a ton of episodes where every scene is just 2 people talking, and then it goes to 2 different people talking, and then it goes back to the first 2, and that's the entire episode.
Yeah.
It's great character development.
Yeah, I loved the careful plotting, and that's something that I appreciate about the books as well. I think it's fair to say that it got slow at times, right? But I would just like the realities of how long it takes to get places to just throw it up on the screen 1 month later, like whatever, you know.
Yeah, mine's character development. I wanted more of
Yeah.
that to be slower. It's just some
I agree with that.
snaps that like I
Yeah.
liked what happened to Daenerys. I would have liked for it to happen slightly slower.
Yeah. No, I think that's a absolutely fair criticism. I hear that and understand it.
Yeah.
For me, I loved it. Like I was really happy that they were plowing through it because the show that I watched was very verbose and slow.
Even the first 2 episodes of this season were pretty slow.
They were, yeah.
And
there's
I
a lot
really
of
liked
talking.
the first
I
2
liked the second
episodes.
one. I liked the
I like
second
the
one the
second
most.
one
Yeah.
as well.
No,
It felt
that's
just like a.
that's
you know,
true.
like the scene in like Mass Effect before everyone goes into like the suicide mission.
Yes,
you
I
know?
love it in Mass Effect 2.
Mass Effect
Yeah.
2. Good game.
Yeah.
Good game. All right.
But I think my biggest problem is like the red herrings of this season, or just the whole show in general. Like mostly just the White Walkers in general. It's like this entire story seemed to be building up about life versus death. You know, the throne. It is the Game of Thrones, but that's secondary because what really matters is it's the living versus the dead.
Right. It felt
It's-
like the throne was the red herring, then it turned out it
Yeah.
was the other way around.
And it just felt so like that may be a twist to some. I don't know if you felt like that was a twist, a satisfying twist, but
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was fine.
I just
ahead.
like I don't know. It felt like it just felt like they were delineating. They're moving far off from the original, like just energy of the show.
investment.
The entire point. Yeah, like the
Yeah, I mean, it felt like if you watched the last, people are saying, of course, that it's the name of the show. This is always what it was going to be about. I think if you watched the last 5 or so seasons, or even maybe from the beginning, from the opening scene, which
Yeah.
is about the White Walkers,
Yeah.
every character in the show who we were meant to believe was smart or righteous or somebody who we and other characters should be listening to has been saying, you know, your petty squabbles over who sits in this chair and wears this hat are meaningless, right? Like it's the battle between life and death. There's something more important.
Yeah.
And then those people all kind of turned out to be wrong. And so
I think the point there, and I'm in the camp that I feel like that was rushed, but from like I can excuse that one as the point was they finally did all work together and prove that the throne didn't matter and they succeeded. but then because they're all dumb, they went back to caring about the throne too much. So I think it was like the point was
what I
like
got.
you brought them all together. They were right. Like everyone working together and not caring about the throne is successful. But then they just shattered it because humanity sucks.
Yeah,
It's
and
kind of how I took that.
I think that's part of the cynical, what the message of the show ultimately became, which I think, especially in these times right now, like I would have been okay if it was a little more hopeful. Like to me, the message of the show became
we all
humanity.
band together, we can beat climate change.
Well, it became
Democracy.
you all still
on
suck.
a
Not every-
personal level and on a societal level, like we're always going to succumb to the worst parts of ourselves.
That's what I got from it.
Which is that's so depressing. Like if that's
Yeah.
the message of the show,
But
I wish I
was
hadn't got
okay
so
with
invested
that part
in it.
when I was thinking about it
That's
like
what
that.
Game of Thrones has always been about. And Game of Thrones has always been about the shittiest people. Like, and it's one of those things where like the Starks to me were the reason at the beginning of the show they're like getting killed and raped and murdered and like all sorts of terrible things are happening to them and they're the best people in the show.
Yeah.
So to me, it was always like this show is trying to teach me a lesson that if you're like, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be good, but it's more of like if you're going to be good in a bad world, you're going to get persecuted.
Yeah.
But it was also about bad people trying to be better, like Jamie, for example.
Well, yeah, and Jamie's one of the only. I mean, like like Cersei, she maintains her evilness the entire time, and it's one of those things.
Yeah,
that,
but we also learn more about her, though. We learned that her
I don't
motivation
care.
is
she's been bad the whole time. She's bad, and I couldn't wait for her to die. But
on that we agree.
okay, good, all right, good. Yeah, but I mean, it's just. But that was what I got from it. But I understand both sides of this too. Like that's the thing. Watching the show, I get why people felt like it was rushed. I get why people wanted more of it because it's a good show.
And it's ultimately subjective, right? Like we felt one way, you felt a different way. But this is, I think, why people feel betrayed or personally hurt by this. It's because it turned out to be something so different from what people thought.
From what they got invested in. That's what bothers me about it for sure. It's like I cared about this and you just shat on it is how it feels. But I'm just not mad. I can separate the two things because it's not part of my identity.
I think the show broke me when Oberyn died because I was really excited about Oberyn, what he was doing, and I was like, man, Oberyn's gonna live forever. He's gonna be the best. And then his head got smashed in, and I was like, oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's
So
brutal.
did you read the books after that?
I think I think this was when I was reading the books and it happened. But the way the show visualizes it, you're just like
It
to me
was
that was
rough.
the show was telling you. This is what's gonna happen. Like I was like, oh boy, okay. So I assumed John was gonna die. I assumed Arya was gonna die. I assumed all of these people were gonna die.
I think in a way that would have been more satisfying. Like,
Yeah,
do
I
you
agree.
wish there had been more,
I wish there was more deaths,
main
for sure.
character deaths?
No,
over
for
the-
sure in this last season. Then I'm still my biggest criticism of the Battle of Winterfell is that everyone just lived.
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
make any
that
sense.
was that was surprising. It was definitely
How?
surprising.
That to me is a problem, not just with the writing, but again with the editing, because there were so many shots of like Jamie, Tormund, Brienne, Pod, and Sam just
Screwed.
like with a pile of zombies on top of them, just crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Sam
it
had
goes
one
to the
knife
next-
Yeah,
and then
and
he's
he's
like,
crying.
oh,
Right, and
you're
then it
dead,
goes
mate.
Literally waves of undead that poured over all the main characters, and they cut away and like, this is
Yeah.
interesting. The show is taking a turn. We lost all of our main characters.
I was watching it
and we
going, so
cut
they're
back,
all
and
dead.
there's like
They're
no.
still
zombie-
fine, yeah.
and I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you're totally right about that. It was one of those things where I was expecting them to be overwhelmed, but that may have been our bias. I was thinking about that too. It may have been our bias that was saying in our heads, oh, they're all going to die. Game of Thrones always kills main characters. They're all going to die.
Oh, and episode 2 set it up so well. Episode 2
Yeah.
was brought so many character arcs together, full circle.
Yeah.
Everyone
that-
was completed, therefore
Yes.
everyone could be dead.
Yeah.
So if
Yes,
everybody
yes.
died the next episode, it would have been like, "Whew, that was rough. But it, ultimately it was okay. But I do think if you just watch what's on the screen, totally objectively, you would think you can't survive that.
Sam's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're also heroes. There's dragons and people came back to life.
That's the
in
plot
this.
armor, though,
Yeah,
that-
that's absolutely plot armor. Of
Yeah,
course.
but that's what this
a-
show
it's a
used
show
to
is
not
show of
have.
magic.
No,
Yeah.
I'm
That's a
actually with him
change.
on this, Bruce. This show is known for not caring about plot armor. If you look at the previous main
Ned.
character, Ned in the first season, but even like in the Dothraki, like Jorah fighting the Dothraki hero in like the first season, the Dothraki comes at him with like his sickle, it sticks in his armor, and he just cuts his throat, and that's like, oh shit, we're dealing with like a new type of warrior here, and that becomes like a whole like, and then you fast forward in time to this battle. And he gets stabbed through the breastplate of his like plate armor by like a rusty knife. Like,
Yeah,
an
or
undead.
the
And
Night
it's
King.
like-
The Night King stabs Theon with the broken wooden end
Yeah.
of a spear.
And it's like you can say that Night
that's
King's
not
like
going through
crazy
plate
strong.
armor.
Like but like the idea is like armor sometimes is relevant, sometimes it's not relevant. Like who was it that got stabbed 80 times and then still just kept like trucking? Like there was, it just seems so
Who was that?
inconsistent.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was the.
I mean, Barrick made it into that room at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Barry.
Jorah. He got stabbed a ton.
Yeah,
in the
him
Battle of
too.
Winterfell. Tons. You're
lot of-
like, mate, you're
Well, he
dead.
was defending
Also,
his-
Daenerys is by herself. Has she had combat training?
Yeah, no, I don't know what she was
How?
doing. There was one cut where like there was 5 infected running towards her.
Yes.
And he was like facing the other way, and she like raises like a stick or something.
Right.
And they cut back, and she kills the last one. I'm like, all right.
mean, part of
And
it that-
he was at Winterfell and somehow wound up behind
Oh yeah,
her.
he like ran around a
and
little
it
bit.
made
yeah.
for a surprising shot, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah,
But it's like,
It-
how did he?
It was
get
definitely
there?
like.
One of the
cinematic
things that got me
number
was
one
the
from
Night
there.
King looking back at Jon when he's ages away, but then I guess he just didn't notice Arya.
Yeah.
So like forever away, and he's
She's a master assassin.
But it's like
Yeah,
that
but he's the
scene in
Night King.
it's like that scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail where the guards are at the door and they're
Oh, yeah.
the two guys they're
Yeah.
running and then
Yeah.
the guy's just like eating an apple. It looks back, they're still in the same place.
Let me pose this question to you, because everyone's like, I expected these main characters to die in Battle of Winterfell, blah, 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 blah. I did too, totally did. And you're absolutely right when you see the pile of zombies. The show may have been subverting your expectations again. Because
Sure, I don't
everyone
like that,
expected
though.
them to die. No, I'm serious. Because I totally expected them to die.
Mm-hmm.
And it subverted my expectations that main characters survived. And I was yet again, like, happy about that. I was like, well, that's cool. Like, thanks for doing that. I expected everybody to die. Thanks for keeping them
Just
alive.
a really happy person, aren't you?
Yeah.
Generally,
I'm honestly jealous.
generally, like, I really like happy endings. And this was not necessarily a happy ending, but it absolutely subverted my expectations. I did not expect them to survive.
To me, the expectation that was subverted is that actions would have consequences.
That's-
Like
That's
exactly
I'm
what
100
it
percent
is.
the same
the,
page.
the reason why the Red Wedding or Ned's death or Oberyn's death or even like Tywin's death, the reason those had so much impact to me is not because they were shocking or because they subverted our expectations of like what a narrative is, but it's because you can look back at those things and the events and the choices that the characters made that led up to them and go, God, it makes perfect sense now. And to subvert that expectation while still surprising, I don't think is a good thing.
Yeah, I did.
I think it used to be a show about consequence and became a show about action.
And-
It used
and-
to be
and
this happened
spectacle.
because of this. Yeah.
I guess that's why I liked it, because the consequences, I think there had been already so many consequences at the beginning, and truthfully in life in general, there's eventually life's going to let up. Eventually you're not going to like you're
Is
going
it
to
letting up when the zombie hordes are coming at you?
you're gonna- I know, but
Why
you're
is that? What is it
but you're going to catch a
Single
like you're going
knife,
to you're going to catch a
crying.
lucky break, and that's kind of why in reality that's going to happen. It's just going to happen. You're gonna get lucky, you're going to find $100 in the ground. It's one of those things. So for me, I was like, man, this show's really beating me down, blah, 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 beating me down. And then over and over and over, like in season 7, when Jon and that just the few people, Barrick and everybody else were surviving on that tiny little ice island where all the zombies around them, like, they're all gonna die. They're gonna die. And then survived. I was like,
Well, except Thoros.
so except for
R.I.P.
Thoros. R.I.P. Thoros.
Who?
He was the priest, yeah.
yeah.
But when they survived, I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Because I was really excited
Yeah, in
about
that
the
one
fact
I was
that they
okay with it.
survived.
I was cool with it there.
Because they even
Battle
had a big
Winterfell,
loss
I
of a
wasn't.
dragon. Like that was a great
You
moment.
should go, but
Yeah.
you should go back and watch that because it doesn't look like they survived. Like,
Right.
even to your point, the editing in that, I was like,
No, and I didn't like that episode.
Yeah, no, it was like-
before this season, that I considered that to be the worst episode of the show.
it was the cool. I was so excited by this because again, they're paying off narrative that they've been building for years, and I was like, oh, finally they're going to use the dragon. Finally, they're going to use this thing
Yeah.
they've been training for 6 years or whatever. It's like.
I mean, I think with the knowledge looking back that all those characters were going to survive, I wish they had shot that episode differently. You know, that's it.
I
Like
agree with that.
I'm not going to be one to complain about characters surviving or the way like Dany going full Mad Queen and burning everyone if it happens in a way that doesn't
Believable.
break my suspension
Yeah.
of disbelief.
Yeah,
And my
like
suspension
how
of
did
disbelief was
one shot kill one dragon super easily, and then they had 10 of those things all manned, and
exactly.
none of them
Miss,
It's just
right.
inconsistent to me, and like my suspension of disbelief was just demolished
get that.
in those episodes.
That's my big problem
Yeah,
too.
same.
No, that all makes sense to me. I think you guys are not having any fun. And that's,
You're
that's-
completely right.
That's unfortunate.
Except Clegane Bowl, I will say I had a ton of fun
a lot of
watching
people
that.
I
Not
talked
to
to
bring it
said
up again.
They hated it. They hated it, and I loved it. That was cool.
One of my
I was
friends
cool with it,
made
yeah.
big foam hands that were like Clegane Bowl,
Bowl.
get hype. And we were singing it like this.
It was right. You know what's also awesome? Bespoke post.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
Alana, why don't you pull up that bag there's a bag down there in the hourglass and all this stuff. So
This is from a Bespoke Post?
this is all from Bespoke
Oh, this
Post.
thing's
This
extremely cool.
little hourglass full of iron filings. You can turn it over. It's got magnets on it. It's really-
Magnets are super cool.
Magnets
look
are
at the way that
always
they
cool.
fold
There's also
in
that Craig. There's a bag down there with a few pens. No, not the cup.
That's your cup, sir.
So with their box of awesome, Bespoke Post sends guys only the best stuff every month, like this bag and that hourglass and
Why
some
just
pens,
guys?
some little pens in there. I don't know. They test everything in the box of awesome themselves, from style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear. Every product gets put through the ringer before it gets put inside a monthly box of awesome. To get started,
This thing's rules.
take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers will help them pick the right box of awesome for you. I'm sure Alana, if she took the quiz, she would get the hourglass.
More hourglasses, please.
Pen has a level on it.
I know, it's got a level on the pen. I'm
Whoa.
telling you, they release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. It's free to sign up, and you can skip a month or cancel anytime. Each box costs only $45, but has over $70 worth of gear inside. Get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code DUDE at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code DUDE, D-U-D-E, for 20% off your first Bespoke Post box.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sits on Lawrence's desk throughout the week, and I always turn it over and always screw with it.
I guess I'd never looked at it before, but I had seen him one day. Every time it was done, he would flip it, and I'd be like, what are you doing that you keep flipping that for?
Yeah.
I didn't ask, but I was like, that's really strange. But I guess it was that it looks that cool that he just kept wanting to
Just
flip
fool
it.
with it. Yeah, you just fool with it. All right. Well, I appreciate all of the discourse we had. I've seen lots of different opinions across the internet, especially as well here.
Is it meme time?
It is meme time.
Yeah, dog.
Let's.
We can all agree the memes were.
Yes, I've said this many times, but the memes are they've made it all worth it.
Yes.
The memes coming out of this season are intensely,
Good quality content,
intensely
internet.
good.
Omar, are you running it? Okay, great. So this is the first one from Maisie Williams. Oh, just here for the memes, as Maisie Williams said, and she was absolutely right.
We are all here. For
We're all
this.
only here for the memes. What's the next one, Omar? 19 years later, but Dad, what if I get put in House Lannister?
Oh, yeah.
John kneels before his son, puts a hand on his shoulder. Tyrion, Eddard, Knight, King Snow, you were named after the bravest man I ever knew.
And a zombie.
And a magic zombie.
zombie.
Tyrion, Eddard, Knight, King Snow.
This
Amazing.
epilogue for the last Harry Potter book has I think was
Oh, yeah.
Very memeable.
awful at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, no,
and,
yeah,
and
it's always been bad.
One of my favorite memes.
Yeah. Jaime Lannister's Kingslayer level is so high. He tried to kill the king 8 seasons ago. I'm trying to describe it for the audio listeners.
I love
Saw
it.
that one.
Game of Thrones wheelchair. That's the actual just.
Yeah, one of my
throne.
favorite
Yeah,
jokes from
throne.
the past season also has been that Bran actually, we're all waiting for him to warg into something else to take over and do something. And
Yep.
but the theory is he warged into Drogon to melt the Iron Throne into a ramp for himself.
Jeez. Grey Worm, you are a prisoner. You are not here to speak. Tyrion gives 5-minute speech where he single-handedly decides the fate of Westeros. I thought that too. When
I was
watching,
so
like,
confused what Grey Worm was doing the entire time.
He was
He's like,
he was standing there angry. I was looking at him.
he was just,
like
just mad. He's like, you killed my queen. What am I here? What am I doing here anymore? He
When
doesn't
did
even
Grey
know.
Worm become such a dick? Is it just
Miss
when
Andy.
Miss Andy
Yeah,
died?
I think so.
It was Missandei.
My son.
God.
We will sail to Noth. This is Grey Worms. We'll sail to Noth and leave the Six Kingdoms forever. And then Sansa.
Is he
Arya-
gone?
Sansa, Arya, and Bran are standing there. Is he gone? I think so. Old John, you can stay here. It's cool now.
Yeah, the only people who really cared about Jon leaving are the
but he's
Unsullied and the
honorable.
Yeah.
Dothraki, right?
So, you know.
Right. I also think he
guess.
kind of low key wanted
wants
to go
to go
back
back
to
to
the
the
north.
What do you
like,
think would be the point of the Night's Watch now? Can I ask you that?
This is such a good question.
If you have a quick answer.
There isn't one. There's
excellent.
There's the ice bears.
Well,
Every once
hold
in a
on.
while, Ice Bear might come
the
out.
Night's Watch, from what I gathered from the books, I could be wrong. You would know better than I would. Is that this is a thing that is constantly happening. Winter's always coming eventually, right? So isn't it like a cycle?
Well, the White Walk. There's always a cycle of winter coming, but the White Walkers are a new thing or a thing.
Are they?
They're
I
a
thought
thing.
that they were always. They'd
They're a
always
thing
been
from
around.
legend.
way
like,
long ago.
like
It's not like a
1,000 years in
locust
the
thing. It's
past.
more like, you know.
Well, so
Right. It was the thing that people in the present of the story mostly didn't believe in. And so the Night's Watch for the past however many thousand years has mostly been keeping the wildlings out.
Yeah,
and now
okay.
the
Now they're
wildlings
cool.
are our friends. So
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, they
the
made
last
it.
shot, it seemed like John was like just going to go inhabit the north with them.
right. The adventures of John and
Tormund,
Tormund and their good pal Ghost, the dog. And is he king the wildlings now? I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
And she can't bear children.
Brand's dick doesn't work.
I saw some very good Bran memes.
Yeah.
Well, Sansa in front of
this
literally
one.
everyone.
No, I really liked the I don't know if you'll have it, but it's like Tyrion, Bran the broken, and Bran's like, just Bran will do, and everyone's like, Bran the idiot.
Right. What does he say at the end?
Bran the incompetent.
The
Bran, Wheelie likes no
for it.
feelie.
Yeah.
You can go to the next one,
me.
Omar.
You appear to be what?
Yeah,
there we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Bran the Wheelie likes no feelie. It's so good. I was like, why? When did Tyrion decide that
It was Bran
that
the
was
Broken?
Bran's name?
Yeah.
Like they had that conversation in Ep 2 where he was like, "Tell me your story," and then it cut away. Did Bran tell him that? Like, okay,
Wait,
and in
that
4
part
episodes,
literally got him to the throne. But then they're like, hey, so what's new with you? And he's like, well, let me tell you.
Yeah.
They just told him such a good story. Tyrion's like, he should be king. That was a good story.
and also
To be fair, he would be a good king. He's a prophet.
Yeah,
but
You can see everything
Yeah.
all
That's
the
why
time.
I was okay with this. Like,
I just don't buy that he would want it.
I thought
Yeah.
Bran the Broken was cool. I thought that name was
No,
cool.
same, but it's
I
still,
know it sounds
it's still
sad,
mean.
but it's also, but it's
well,
cool.
it's. I think that is our expectations of the climax and the conclusion of a fantasy series being subverted in a good way. Is that the crippled boy who is weird and does magic, he becomes king,
He's
right?
the king, yeah.
I think that's a good ending.
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
What's the next one, Omar?
I did that
said
too.
this
thought
at the
that
time.
too. I
yeah.
thought that too.
Oh, that's kinda
Ilaria
smart.
Sand screaming about.
when Brienne's writing in the book about Jaime Lannister, and then she closes the book, but the ink's still wet.
Yeah, she
think
also
she did it on
she
purpose. She
brushed
was
her
like,
hand
"Yeah, fuck you,
over
Jaime."
it too,
Yeah.
and I was
yeah,
like,
he's like,
I didn't know that. Okay.
There are a lot of good memes about the book too.
What's west of Westeros? I don't know. Probably your spin-off show.
do you guys want that? Do you want to see an Arya spin-off show?
Not anymore. I did until the weird white horse
Boycott it.
shit. and
Don't
all
watch
that.
it.
I want.
oh yeah, what,
I don't think I'll watch
the
any
white
of the
horse. Can we talk about the white horse? Even you got to say, what's up with that horse, man?
I don't know. It's just they found a horse.
And then
She's
what happened
riding
to
out of the
horse?
city, and then the next
And
time
then
we see
she's
her
just
in the
back
next
in the city and the
episode,
horse
she's
is
just
gone.
walking the opposite direction. Where'd the horse go?
Do you really need the horse?
It was like a
to
15-minute
be
shot of a
explained to you?
horse.
Are you joking?
I think
was a
I think
very
it was
long
like
shot.
a
Guys,
waterfall,
are
but it
you
wasn't
really
that one.
joking? She got off the horse and tied it somewhere.
Why?
What do you
It
mean?
was also
why?
Jamie's horse, by the way.
I think
was it?
I think
think
the
so.
reason
I went
why
back.
people are talking about this is that it is a good example of the show putting the immediate symbolism and the spectacle and
Yeah.
the visual over continuity.
Totally.
In that she gets on the horse and she rides away.
Mm-hmm.
She's riding toward the gates of the city, and then the next time we see her, she's just kind of like walking up the steps,
Like-
or whatever. So it's like, what is the point of that? Well, it's biblical imagery. It's apocalyptic. It's beautiful. But when you stop to think about it,
Time had just passed. I mean, that was just it. Time had passed.
how much time though?
I mean, what does it matter?
Give me
I
1
don't
month
know.
later.
What do you? You
I
guys.
don't know. It doesn't
you
matter.
guys. This is Braun. Season 3 has no idea how a bank works. Season 8, Master of Coin.
Yes, I love this.
Master.
There's that scene where Bronn and
You know,
Tyrion
he's
are
had a good
talking.
character arc. Yes.
Yeah.
There's that scene where Bronn and Tyrion are talking, and Tyrion literally has to explain loans
Yeah.
to Bronn, where he goes, "Well, what happens if I just don't pay my loans back?"
Yeah.
Tyrion's like, "Are you kidding me?" And now he's the master of coins.
Yeah.
so.
Is there any more, Omar? Oh, here we go. Bran, I can't be Lord of Winterfell. I'm the three-eyed raven now. 2 weeks later. Bitch, what the fuck you think I came all this way for?
Amazing.
That's a good point.
Can Bran see the future?
Yes.
Yeah.
From what
Oh, I
I've-
thought it was just the past.
From what
Well-
I've gathered, he could see the future as well. I thought
He
that
definitely
he could.
implied he could, which is why he gave the whole dagger to Arya and like did a whole bunch of really subtle things that were like very precise with their timing. Like,
Yeah.
Revealing John's
He seemed, he
heritage.
seemed to me like the
True.
Doctor Strange of
Yeah.
the universe.
I think
Yeah,
he's Dr.
I
Manhattan.
made the same
yeah.
comparison, but Doctor Strange peering into the future and looking at the 14 million possibilities and going, "This is the one." The difference between Bran and Doctor Strange, I think, is that Doctor Strange didn't choose the one eventuality where he becomes Emperor of the Galaxy.
Yeah, Brandon.
point.
That's a very good point.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. God,
John's
damn,
line,
John.
in the Venn diagram of John's lines in
John's lines in
John's
season
John.
8, yeah. Half of
50%.
it, I don't want it. Half of it, you're my queen.
my
And
queen.
that was one thing that I did over and over. I was just like, just decide, John. And I was actually really glad he stabbed her because I was like, finally, you did something.
do something.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, just take action. Jeez.
It was dark, but I'm glad it happened.
That
too.
happened.
Oh yeah, this.
Pointy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting one because, like they said in an earlier season, that dragons are supposed to be smarter than humans.
Yeah,
in
which
some
I'm
cases.
sure there's another one of these memes coming up because like there's been some really choice ones about this exact same scene with
Yes.
Drogon.
Why- why Drogon
why
burned
did
the throne?
Drogon burn the
Yeah.
throne? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's that he recognized that she was obsessed with it, and that's why she died.
Really?
Oh, that's
you,
Well,
you
if
really
the-
think it's that level
If the
of high?
canon is that they're that smart, then yeah.
I think dragons just understand symbolism really well.
Maybe.
What about you? You're sighing over there. Lots of deep sighs.
At the moment I was like, maybe he still recognizes that Jon's like the closest thing to a Targaryen that he's got, and therefore like I can't really harm you, or like, you know.
So he just gets angry.
I mean,
and then,
Drogon certainly recognizes that Jon
Absolutely.
has this connection.
Sure.
He lets Jon pass.
Yeah.
You know, he
Yeah.
lets
Yeah.
Rhaegal lets Jon ride him.
He didn't,
So he's
but
recognized.
he also is like, I don't trust you via all of his ongoing looks. And then when Jon pays it off by killing her,
Yeah.
he's like, ah, damn it, I
Yeah,
was
I
right.
knew it.
And then he like just leaves. So
Wonder where he takes her.
I know, under that too. I was thinking like
back to
either-
Valyria.
Yeah, back across the sea, or to eat her was what my first bet was.
You think he ate her?
Maybe, you know.
Well, on that
You'll
note,
always be part of me, Mom.
on that note, this is we'll have to end it. I liked that scene, man. You guys.
No, I did too. I thought that was. I
like
thought that
that
was
scene a
cute.
lot,
I
too.
thought that was
Anyways,
cute.
thank you for watching. I appreciate it as always. Mike, Kryken, Alana, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And
thanks
talking
for
about your opinions. That's really helpful to have you around. Also helpful to have you around.
I'm sorry about how
Yeah,
my
you were
brain
also
works.
fine,
What does that mean?
You
invited me,
were
Bruce.
also here.
You asked to come on.
What are you talking about? I'm gonna use my broken voice.
Oh, he's
now.
so sick.
You sound hurt.
Yeah, you hurt me.
No, it's
my
because he
God.
did a sub. He worked really hard
Yeah,
one day.
I streamed for 24 hours, and now I've been.
Oh,
broke.
yikes.
And now his.
You lost your voice because you streamed for 24 hours? Damn.
that was a week ago.
I know.
All right.
Anyways.
Okay.
Get over
Get
it.
it together.
Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully, you are a little less angry after this podcast.
I'd be more angry
Seems
All right,
unlikely.
well, never mind. Bye,
I
guys.
am more angry,
Bye.
if I get out of here.
God, this thing rules.
It's like an escalator. Like she slowly moved to it, but you felt like it was an elevator.
Like it was like
right?
bang.
Like it
Yeah.
was like boom, and we're at it.
It was them. It was the writers, as far as I can tell, and as far as it seems to me as a viewer. The writers had 3 episodes to make her break bad, basically.
What about Daenerys when she burned up the Tarleys?
So
See, like to me, when she burned up the Tarleys last season, I was like, fuck, dude.
But she's